Hi guys, this is Nadia Hilker. I'm playing Magna on The Walking Dead, and you guys are listening to The Walking Dead Talks Through. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast, and I'm sending all my love. Bye!
Hello, my name is Cassie McClincy. I play Lydia on The Walking Dead, and you're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through. Yeah!
Hey there guys, I'm Callan McAuliffe and you're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through on Talk Through Media.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Hey, survivors! Welcome to episode 114 of The Walking Dead Talk Through. I'm Brian.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Mark.
And we are doing something new we've never done before, but we figured, this is the pseudo end of the season and the coronavirus and all this stuff. So we thought, hey, why don't we open things up and allow our listeners to join in on the festivities. So we've got a couple of them here. We've got Dieta from Detroit. Hi, Dieta.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
And we also have LT from NC.
Hello there.
All right. So we are going to be covering season 10, episode 15 of The Walking Dead, titled The Tower. It is written by Kevin. Did they say Deiboldt or Deiboldt on Talking Dead? I think they said Deiboldt.
I thought it was Deiboldt.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
Because I've been saying Deiboldt forever. So Kevin Deiboldt and Julia Ruchman, and directed by Laura Belsey. The description is: the communities prepare for the final battle of the Whisper War. Meanwhile, Eugene's group encounters Princess, which again doesn't get a shock horror. It's just not. These are not shock horrible.
No.
No, not at all.
She is shocking, but not horrible.
Right.
All right, so we're going to start with Mark. What did you think of this episode?
Well, I gave it 8.5 out of 10 betas inside voices coming out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I had a lot of those.
Kyle?
Yeah, I give it. Well, I kind of struggled because I'm like, I enjoy the episode, but I started looking at my ratings from previous episodes. So I had to check it and being like, you know what? I'm like, I didn't like it as much as I've liked some of the previous episodes. So I'm giving it an 8.5. Hipster princess lacking basic spatial cognitive skills. Because I'm sorry, that whole minefield was just, it kind of threw me over the edge.
yeah, it was a bit odd.
Yeah, well, I had a similar kind of reaction to it. I said it's better than some of the other episodes because there have been a few I haven't really liked, but there's also been some episodes that I've really liked. Last week I really liked. Week before I really liked. I think, or maybe that was 2 weeks ago. Anyway, 9, it's not ideal. Or I could also say 9, eeny, meeny, means no minies, mo. And then I have to ask, 9, is Beta the cat whisperer? Oh. And we've got someone else joining us. Glynis has joined us. Hi, Glynis. You're not muted, but we can't hear you. So, okay. So why don't we start with those of us that are here on the Zoom call? So, Dieta, why don't we start with you? What'd you give this episode?
I kind of piggyback off of what you said. And I think Mark, who went first, just said 9 out of 10. Who's whispering to the whisperer? That's all I could come up with.
LT, what about you?
I'm going with a 9 rink arbitrary out of 10. And got a spare canteen?
Yeah, you just don't throw those away.
The good old rink arbitrary, because that's how Ruthie rates everything is arbitrary. No rhyme or reason to it. That one doesn't piggyback on the other. It's all, So, okay, Glynis, I don't know if you can respond, but if you can, we could either read your rating or you could read your rating.
Yeah, you can go ahead and read it. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Glynis.
Hi.
Hi, Gladys.
Hi.
All right. Well, Glynis actually gives it 9 out of 10, a few bananas short of a bunch. And then we got one more.
Yep.
Mark?
That would be Steve from Oklahoma City, and he gives it 9 out of 10. Possum is basically a big rat.
Yep.
That it is. All right, let's move on to Awesome Sauce.
All right, so we'll start it with the people we have that are not on the call. And we'll go with Steve from Oklahoma City. And Steve says, Princess, as crazy, quirky, and selfish she was, I dug the character on the second watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have to agree. To me, last week when I first saw the intro of her and everything, and this week I got to digest it, but the second watching is when I started to accept it a little bit more.
Yeah, I kind of had the same deal because I'll go into it obviously later on, but it's like the second watch, and I actually watched part of it, kind of a third watch, but it's like she grew on me, but the initial reaction I did not like, but we'll go into that later.
All right. And I'm going to assume, Glynis, you want us to just read it. So go ahead, Kyle.
All right. Well, Glenn is from Toronto. She says, Daryl and Judith bonding and Daryl not sugarcoating what the future may hold. Judith is already a force to be reckoned with and can only get stronger with the extra tracking training she's now getting from Daryl. There is no stopping her.
No stopping that girl.
Nope. Not at all.
All right. Tieta, what do you have for Awesome Sauce?
Mine was the same probably as I think you said with Steve. I just like the princess. I thought that whole cold open with her, that scene was real. Because I had to watch it a second time too. I kind of missed some of that stuff, but I just loved her character and thought it was hilarious, especially when King Ezekiel decided to introduce himself as just Ezekiel and not put the king on it.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
yeah. LT, what about you? What do you have for Awesome Sauce? Anything?
Well, I'm really enjoying seeing Princess. My daughter, you can hear her. My daughter loves her because she's like, "Oh my God, it's me!" but just she was on the fence for me a lot because I'm like, "Oh, this is cool. Oh, this is bad. Oh, this is cool. Oh, this is bad." And especially minefields give me heebie-jeebies anyway. But I'm more excited about, who did Aaron and what's his dinger get hung up with in the woods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
After I thought he was going to play peekaboo with Beta on the windmill and get caught.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Well, yeah,
because it was like the bad third grader peek around the corner.
That's funny.
But yeah, and so, well, I'll leave that for later.
All right.
I just thought of something. I'll hang on to it.
All right, Mark. What about yours?
Well, yeah, we finally get Dog back.
Yeah. You were going to say that after last week.
We got a cat too.
Yeah, we got a cat and a dog.
I think is that the first cat we've ever had on this show?
Yeah.
Like I know we've had Skid Mark on
Fear.
But I think this is the first one.
Yep, first cat. Somebody asked for a cat in the last podcast. Somebody mentioned that they needed a cat or something.
Well, no, my cat was jumping all over the place, and yeah. In fact, at some point, I may have to deal with him because he's actually laying in the bed on the other side of this wall. So, So if he wakes up, then he'll start jumping all over the place. It's not funny.
The only other thing I would have would be the Horde looks great. I think it looks better than what we've had before, especially that last scene we saw of Michonne walking away with that group, and you saw how they were all converging on. And then, with this, at least when you see them, all the walkers walking, it doesn't look so messy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're taking some of the words out of my awesome sauce.
Sorry.
No, it's just reaffirming. So I'll just go into mine then, because it's like I thought Beta's Horde, like I thought it looked awesome because of it just looks so massive, and I feel like we haven't really seen much recently, at least that, like what you're saying, it's like where Michonne meets up with the other people, and they cut away from that wide shot and seeing this other group or whoever these people are, but it was a wide shot and it was massive. And so you're like, okay, that's like a big, huge thing that's going on. That has an impact. And I felt like this time it was like having these wide shots of just like all these walkers, and it was like massive. It felt like it upped the anxiety level that I feel like I haven't seen in the show in a while. And I totally loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess my next thing, besides dog, I have to, you mentioned that. So it's like, yeah, dog's back. Because I feel like this was like the episode of Game of Thrones that we've been waiting for.
Everybody looking for Ghost.
Right. And then they're like, oh, dog's back. Even though there was nothing that was ever done, said, other than the fact that it's like, oh yeah, it's like he's keeping the cats away, but obviously not. But I love the fact it's like, hey, Brian, I think you were the one that might have mentioned it's like, hey, where's dog? And it's like, oh, now here he is.
No, that was Mark.
Oh, was it Mark? Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just good to see him. I was glad that he showed up. And I guess I'm like what I wrote, and it's like I'm gonna just go through it because it's like Carol and Kelly like had this heart-to-heart moment. I feel like this episode had a lot of like character interactions where, it's like, you had Judith and Daryl having their little kind of like one-on-ones, and like Carol and Kelly had like this one-on-one, and like, I guess I'll just go through what I read. It's kind of long, but it's just basically, it's like, Kelly was basically telling Carol how like her sister, when she was like losing her hearing, was like saying, it's like her sister was like, no, it's like that's not a disadvantage, that's your superpower. And it's like for her to kind of relate that story to Carol, and then even like she was telling Carol that was like, no, it's like we've heard these stories about you from the old days, and like this is what she said. She was just like, she's like, I heard these stories about you in the old days, and they would just go off and you do your thing and only you could do. You were like a lone wolf, and that is your superpower. Like she was explaining to her that it's like, no, we've heard about you, and it's like we grew up on these stories of like the stuff that you did back in the old days. We all know what she did back then, but it was just seeing her tell Carol that it's like, hey, you're not perfect, but we know that this is what you do, and you're doing this in our best interest. And I love that interaction with them. I thought it was a very poignant thing. And, it's like Carol cried, it's like, I think she finally kind of understood that, like, yes, she's not perfect. She's doing this for the better of the group. And like, they all respect her for that. It's like I'll just leave it at that. I love that interaction between those two because I thought that was a very cool, very poignant, very telling deal about where Carol is in the group and like what the group thinks about her.
For mine, I thought that this was another good episode for Ryan Hurst as Beta. I liked the crazy side of him. Especially I was waiting for someone to like actually think that the walkers were talking to them And so we finally get that.
Yeah, we finally
and
get that,
you know, who better than him to think that? And he looks so crazy, you know, now that he's got like part of his mask is actually Alpha's, you know, skin. It just looks so creepy. And I especially liked the scene where, you know, the walker is whispering to him that's right next to him. And it was obviously a walker, wasn't like, you know, a whisperer. I thought that was really cool. Another thing we've never seen before. So,
and he laughed about it too, like as if the walker was actually like saying something to him. He's like, yeah. What's going on here?
I agree with those of you that that like Princess. I think that she's kind of absurd, but I kind of like it. And like she says, "You need food, hair dye." I'm like, there's a term that I never thought I'd hear on The Walking Dead, hair dye.
She mentioned something else too later on, which I'll bring up.
Well, there was this from the clip.
I guess my people skills are pretty rusty. Well, that's something we're going to have to work on then. I was coming over here to see if you wanted to join us. Wait, for real? Yeah, as long as you don't lie to us again, okay? Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Well, you know the area, so.
Do we have enough time to grab stuff from my stash? I've got food and clothes and a cool spear and some candy. Does this mean I get to have my gun back? Can I know where we're going? Is there a map? Do I get to hold it?
It's really funny. I also wanted to highlight that I like the Negan and Lydia scenes, especially the last one. Although I do have a weak sauce for that, but in general, the scenes there, you know, with Lydia finally breaking down and hitting him, you know, I thought that was really good. So
yeah, that was.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the weak variety.
You're worthless and weak.
All right. Well, Steve from Oklahoma City says, Princess shooting at those Zeds apparently around the horses, Eugene, Yumiko, and Ezekiel. She must have been a pretty great shot with a notoriously inaccurate machine gun. And I'm sure LT's got something to say about that.
Why, yes, I do.
You can say it now or you can say it later. Up to you.
Okay. Well, I'll just throw it in now. That's what I was going to tell you about last week, Mark. It looks like an M249,
okay,
which is a squad automatic weapon, or a SAW, colloquially. And they're not that inaccurate. I mean, I've shot machine guns competitively when I was still in, and you know, with like a pig, an M60, you can shoot. It shoots like a match rifle if you set it up right. So it's plausible. I was going horses. You're shooting at their transportation. You're shooting past them, standing there.
Yeah.
And just how accurate she is, because you know that something's going to fly off.
Well, yeah. I'll gripe about the horse in a minute.
All right.
And I'll probably gripe about the guns in a minute too.
We'll gripe about the ammo later, because how is she going to find that ammo?
Right. Anyways. All right. Well, I'll just go in with the Glennis from Toronto. Her weak sauce was Aaron and Alden are the two stooges thinking they had outwitted Beta, and they hadn't spotted Alden when he was craning his head around the corner like an idiot. Aaron should really know better as he is a seasoned veteran at all of us of this now. Usually TV series modus operandi when they keep a secret or tell a half-truth. When Judith didn't mention the real reason that Daryl of why Michonne was not coming back soon.
Yeah, that's a typical TV trope.
Yeah.
You know, and they use that on The Walking Dead a lot.
Yeah.
So
I'll just hide the situation.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I should be telling you. I am going to clam up or, wait until the next scene when something happens and I can't tell you. And of course I'll forget about, the other person will forget about it. So that never actually gets told until, smack dab in the face and, surprise the attempted murderer that tried to kill you 6 years ago is back.
Yeah.
And he lives next door. I forgot to tell you that. Anyway.
I thought it was interesting that she said before the fire when she said that she talked to Michonne.
Yeah.
And
I thought she said after the fire.
maybe I got it wrong, but it's like, I know, she says something after the fire, and I was kind of thinking, like, we even had this conversation when we podcast about this. It was like, why wouldn't you say, hey, like Michelle, and be like, I need to speak to somebody about why I'm not coming, and that Daryl would be the one that would be like, hey, I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And then it was kind of like, oh, this is how he finds out. And it's like, wait, are Michonne and him not on that good level that she would be like, I want to let you know that I'm just not coming back home.
Yeah.
Well, I had that as my sad sauce, the conversation between Judith and Daryl, but I was thinking more of a line that she didn't want to tell him because she didn't want Daryl to leave because, Daryl was looking for Rick, for the longest.
Yep.
And
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I just figured that, that's why she held that part back. Because like I said, my last comment, I found it odd that Michonne didn't ask to speak to an adult because you telling a child, well, I'm going to go find the brave man, but why not put Daryl on real quick and let me tell him what's going on? So then, too, Michonne is probably keeping it secret, too. I don't know. I don't know.
That's a great point, too. It's just, it's kind of like, wait, it's like she's telling Daryl this, and Daryl's all like, huh? And then also, like, raising this kid, and you're just like, oh, you're lying to me now? So, very, very good point. Yeah.
All right. Tieta, what do you have?
Oh, okay. My weak sauce is kind of like usually what Kyle is graphing about, but I don't know if he had this one. Kyle, I found the walkie-talkie conveniently not working when Aaron.
You're channeling Kyle.
Yep, she is.
Man, me and Kyle be so on point all the time. I'm like, okay, but it worked fine when Judith was talking to Michonne, and Michonne was on some island on some water. So I'm like, okay, so what's with this walkie-talkie distance? I mean, it's like they were in the forest, and they weren't far from where the other group was hiding, was hiding from the whispers.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even get a signal. So that was my weak sauce, the walkie-talkies.
No, you can make a good point, and yes, I am always on the walkie-talkies and like gas and like all that other stuff.
Gas, and electricity, and
batteries.
Yeah, the batteries, and then of course, right when they need to tell the group, oh, the herd's coming. Oh, it don't work no more. It's not working. Oh, that's so weak.
I think it's all because you're originally from Oklahoma, so that's like a good oil state. So
yeah, but it's like we have nothing in Oklahoma that will interfere with radio signals. It's not like we have like big mountains and stuff like that. It's like
pretty flat, right?
Yeah, it's pretty flat. So it's like it's probably going to pretty much work. It's just the trope that's it works for what it needs to. So
yeah.
LT, what about you?
Well, other than the bad segue, I was going to say other than the dead horse that Kyle already beat. So why is it the horse ran away from them, but yet they found it in front of them when they found the minefield?
I wondered that myself.
Good point.
Unless the horse had a better sense of direction than anybody else in the group.
Well, couldn't sense those minds.
Well, to be fair, I'm still wondering how they made a minefield in what appeared to be mostly an asphalt parking lot.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. We can go there later in the other like end of feedback story because I thought the same thing. So we'll just leave it at that so we can move on.
Okay.
All right.
And I know
you got
everybody.
something?
Well,
Okay.
just one thing.
Yep.
I know everybody loved the new Horde, but where did they find all those guys?
Yeah.
Did they have like a mall full of spare walkers that they could go pick up?
He is a whisperer, after all. He is
He
a
whispers
walker
to him.
whisperer.
Yeah, but he'd have to be a walker yodeler.
I always questioned how after it's been like since the apocalypse has started that we know of, it's been probably 20 years?
No,
With,
about 10 years.
No. But when Fear started, which was we're thinking about 2010,
right,
to where we're at now, which is like another
2011, 2012,
but another 6 whatever year jump from that. So it's 10 years or maybe 15 years since the initial apocalypse started. That it's whatever that number is, that's a very long time for people to be surviving, killing walkers, doing whatever. That it's there's still a big massive herd of walkers that haven't congregated in other places or whatever. It's I always question, it's they're just walkers are just everywhere no matter what, even though it could be so in 20 years are they finally gone? Anyways, we'll leave that for another discussion.
So what was the point going through the minefield?
Yeah, it was to get her stuff that she had hidden away, supposedly. Yeah. It was
it sounds like they would have actually gotten there, in faster if they just, stayed on
street.
What was it? Fleetwood Drive. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, it's pretty funny too, because where that is, it's not too far away. It's in downtown Atlanta from what I remember. It's not too far away from the Ferris wheel.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed that, where they were standing and that's by a hospital, and that was the parking garage. But it's pretty funny how they dressed it up. But also that minefield was ridiculous. She's 15 feet literally towards the end. And then, Steve and I talked about this right before we podcasted a few nights ago. And he brought it up. He goes, yeah, but it doesn't make sense. It's literally, she just walked a straight line.
Yes.
She didn't really have much more to look for.
Yeah.
That was...
Yeah. I question her spatial, abilities because it's, anyways, we'll go into that later. So
all I have to say is you could have brought them right to the garage.
And you blew it! You blew it! You blew it! You blew it! You had it all and you blew it!
I missed not playing that one. Okay, here's something no one else has brought up. The Whisperers get inside of Alexandria, and I don't see any signs of them burning the place down or trashing it. So what were they doing there, and why didn't they do anything to you'd think they would have taken the opportunity to trash the place even if they weren't there. So I didn't get that. The only thing I saw them do was maybe smash the tomatoes or something. Step on the tomatoes. So to me,
I think if they would have jumped and started doing stuff, wouldn't the walkers would have turned on the regular people whisperer? I don't know, because it just seemed like if they would have did anything other than act like a walker, that might have brought more attention.
I guess
and there was a lot of them.
I guess my point was that they could have, used the walkers to, I don't know, walk into some of the houses and stuff like that, and create a lot of havoc. But
tear up.
But it was basically, Chessy Chase and National Lampoon's Vacation. They get to the Grand Canyon, take one look at it and move. Go on. It wasn't a big thing. So it seemed like a great potential, but no payoff there. So,
yeah.
And the last thing I got to say is, and this isn't a what sauce, but I'm going to use it anyway. Negan, you liked her?
What?
I guess I could also say
It's a trap.
because it was. Anyway.
It was the socks.
Yes. Oh, yes, the socks. All right. So let's move on to the what sauce, even though I already played it.
What?
So, Steve from Oklahoma City says, what city are they in and how is it cleared of Zeds?
And I'm thinking it's Pittsburgh.
Yes.
It's too, like, I was trying to figure out, like.
No, in the comics, it was Pittsburgh.
Right.
You remember we talked about it last week? And we said it was you'll remember.
Yeah. You'd mentioned it, and I don't know if I was like completely buying it, but after I started thinking about it, and it's like, well, how would you get to Charleston if you were in DC? And the answer is you go to Pittsburgh and then you take, was it I-64 or something like that, down to Charleston. So it's not like a straight shot. That would typically be how you would do it. So it makes sense that it would be Pittsburgh. Now, mind you, I never didn't get a chance to look at the skyline of Pittsburgh to see, well, does this look like Pittsburgh? I don't know. But it does stand to reason. I think, Mark, that you're correct. It's probably Pittsburgh.
Well, she in the comic book, she actually states that she was the princess of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But in this case, in the show, and I like to say it, I have to start saying it now because Steve was blasting me last 2 days ago about it, and I don't blame him. It's like the show is the show and the comic's the comic. So they could have just switched this out to be completely different. And that would be interesting because who knows if we find Rick in Pittsburgh, but they're going somewhere completely opposite.
I mean, we'll see.
Hopefully.
All right, Mark, you've got a few here.
Yeah, Negan liked Alpha. I think he was blinded by the Nookie. I just remember how afraid he was whenever he was around her, and then and he always questioned all of her like tactical actions against the group in some ways, and he always had that look of fear in the like every once in a while. So it's like, is this some sort of psychological issue that he's got with Alpha? He was an abused person and used. But yeah, he's got to say to Lydia, I liked her.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lydia though actually called him out on that. It was like that he calling him out as being selfish.
Yeah,
because it's like he was obviously trying to be Negan and play to her to be like, oh no, I really liked Alpha because I killed your mother and you're like whatever. And like I thought that whole interaction though was just like Lydia called him out, even though she kind of, I guess, got her, mourning of her mom, even though she was like, I hate my mom. And it's like, and how dare you say that? I just think that it's like, it just shows that Negan is still somebody you can't trust. And he's going to be that person that's always going to take the advantage when he can see it. And, whether or not they do that in the show, but it's just like, I think that was just a perfect example of like, you can't trust him. He's always going to kind of take an advantage where he can see it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like Negan in some ways is like the old Eugene used to be, who would take advantage of everything. But I would rather have this version of Negan than the old version of Negan.
Right, and I think that that's what we're seeing, but he still is Negan. I've always said it's like Negan is Negan. He like is always going to take the advantage. Hey, Daryl, kneel down to me, even though I'm not going to kill you.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I want to have that experience. But it's just Negan's going to always be Negan, and I think that was a very good illustration of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other two notes I'll go into them. Why would you throw away the water canteen and then ask for another one after you already blew one up?
Yeah.
You're going to need those. What's going on? And what pool? Why would you want to go into a pool that has not been treated in over 10 years. Yeah, she's a little
Oh,
out there.
yeah,
She's crazy.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah. Probably a cesspool at this point.
And was she in it ever?
She was probably in it. Maybe that's what made her nuts. Who knows?
Oh. All right. Well, I'll just do a quick one, which is basically, it's like, I thought it was interesting. It's like, so Princess had a gun that worked. Like, that had bullets. And she even did say that, like, she knew where there was more that she could get guns. I just thought it was interesting that our, like, Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Eugene, they're just like they didn't want to know any more about that. I get that it's like, hey, we're meeting this other group, but here's someone that has a gun that actually works, and they're like literally like, oh, fine, whatever. Like, I'm not impressed by that. Michonne went to go find weapons, and she's been gone forever, and then they don't question that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, here, this woman that we don't even know that has a gun that it works and it's very powerful, and they're not just like, wait, where did you get that? Because we could use like a ton of those right now. And that they like it literally was like, hey, let's go find some bicycles.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't really even press the guns, which they should have.
Right, it was zero.
Because that wasn't like just, a little gun. That was a big gun she had.
Big.
Yeah. LT, I heard you laughing, so.
Yeah, we didn't go to Dieta and LT for the What's Us yet, right? So
yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay. LT, did you have something you wanted to say about the guns? I think you kind of did, didn't you?
Well, just from a supply standpoint, your horses have run off. All you've got is what's in your pockets and on your back, and you're going to be worried more about Eugene's Tinder hookup than going to get supplies.
That's funny.
Priorities, people. Priorities.
Yeah.
Well, Michonne did the same thing. She just decided to run off and look for the Brady man, and to heck, finding guns to send back to our group.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have any more What's Us, LT?
Well, part of it was I was kind of going, Yumiko needs to just calm down because all of a sudden it's like after everything that's happened, it's like you spooked the horses, you walked me through a minefield, we did all this stuff, and now we can be buddies.
No, join the group too. She's like, hey, come join us. Like, she did a 180 from the beginning.
Well, maybe the heartfelt speech, warmed her up and her heart grew 3 sizes.
Yeah.
Or maybe she just turned around, looked at Eugene going, wait a minute, we already had a crazy person here anyway. Let's just grab another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is that.
Yeah.
Dieta, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, mine was real quick. It was just that I was just trying to figure out, like, okay, so Beta was having the whispering, I guess, I don't know, was that his conscience supposedly talking to him, or the wind whispering in his ear? I don't know, but to me was like, okay, so how did you figure out where they were hiding? Because once they went to Alexander and they saw they wasn't there. So now he kind of like, okay, where they at? And all of a sudden he like, okay, they at the school, where they at? Like, I didn't get that. It just didn't make sense to me. I was like, come on now.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
She's part psychic. Maybe that was his psychic side.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting though too. It's like, the voices in his head. I was like, because obviously he's in a different mental state.
Yeah.
Like, he's on his own, and even the
different mental state. That's one way to put it.
Yeah. Well, but even
I might put it this way.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I thought that, like, he obviously is in his mental state, but then there's the Whisperer girl that we don't know that Daryl killed, like she made the mistake of calling him the alpha and then was like, oh no, beta. And then right. And then like he was like, oh, I'm angry. And then she calmed that down for the 2 seconds until she, took off. But I don't know. It's like, it's interesting to see that. I think what the voices, at least the way I was taking it, was like it was still Alpha speaking to him, and then like like that he's like looking because he will not want to acknowledge the fact that he'll ever be the Alpha because Alpha was always Alpha, and he was like that's who, whether or not maybe he loved her, maybe who knows what that deal is, but it's just like Alpha was always Alpha, and I think that after she's gone, like he's like no, she's my Alpha. I think that was the whole point of him pulling the head off and letting this other red shirt get bit by it. It's like you're my person, whatever, and I think that's who he's hearing. And like, even though we see a walker turn and look at him and be like, oh, that's like I forgot what they said. It was something that was like, oh, let's go and get the reward, but then or saying it's like, no, find the path or whatever, but then he sees a cat walk across the path. And I think that's what made him think about like, oh, why is there a cat? Something like that. And then that led them to the tower.
Yeah, that's why I call him the cat whisperer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was like, the fact that he's so messed up, but I think he's still somehow listening to Alpha. And it seems very weird to me.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're so messed up and so whatever. And then it's like, at least on the show, it's like all those voices he's hearing is just basically Alpha in his mind telling him what to do. And
Yeah, and he turned into Beta Walker Ranger.
Going with the theme of cats, we had mentioned, that this is like the first cat that we've seen on this show. We've seen him, and we've seen Skidmark on Fear. But my question would be, where have all the cats gone? Cats, cats are domesticated, but cats, I mean, in practically every city in the world, there are like stray and feral cats, so they can, they're pretty hardy. They can, live even without like humans, being around. I mean, obviously it's easier if they're humans around, but I'm just wondering, like, where are the dogs? Where are the cats? Did they all get eaten? I would think it would be hard to eat a cat.
Yeah, they're too fast.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
think that, the Zeds would think of them as snacks.
Well, they would, but
dogs.
Maybe the walkers got them. Maybe the survivors got them.
Maybe there's a cat lady in the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, I think if you actually think about it in real
why
terms,
haven't we seen a cat lady?
Oh Lord.
You would think at some point they would go into some place where someone died and there'd be
there's like a million cats.
Yeah, 50 million cats.
Carol Baskin of the apocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah, not even that cat. But by the way, you never heard this, but that Carol Baskin, her big cat rescue is about 5 miles away from where I live, and I drive by it all the time. So haven't been there yet, but the other thing I was going to ask, like, okay, so guns, I guess, scare off horses. I don't remember seeing this too often, but why weren't they holding the horses?
Right.
Yeah.
Like that, like if they were scared about that, like obviously they were worried about that, but like, why didn't they like at least hold on to the horse so that the horses, so they didn't go away? And obviously it's worth saying, if you're in the apocalypse, it's probably not a good idea to be a horse.
Yeah, you get eaten.
True.
Or blown up by a mine.
The horses in this show especially don't have a good survival ratio.
Yeah.
They tend to get eaten. So,
and it's funny because they reuse the same horses for different scenes.
Well, figure it like this. It's been, 5 or 6 years since we've had guns. So maybe these horses are not used to loud noises anymore.
True.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, guides that use horses to hunt, they're used to gunfire.
Mm-hmm.
Police horses are trained to ignore gunfire. And then, of course, the old cavalry thing is that's why the Army always shot pistols with one hand, because the other one, you were supposed to hold your reins.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So I guess when they were approaching her, they were both doing the two hands open. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, let's be peaceful. And they let Trigger and Nail go there, and you see what happened.
Yep.
Oh, LT, stop being logical.
Hey, man, we're coming up on fear again, so I guess I'll have to.
Yeah, that was worth saying. That I noticed they had a little teaser trailer for Fear, and it said this summer, whereas World Beyond it said later this year. So that makes it sound like Fear is going to show up before World Beyond. I'm wondering if they're gonna show World Beyond. This is probably something we would talk about in the news, but since we brought it up already, maybe World Beyond is going to premiere in the fall when The Walking Dead would normally premiere now, because they're worried that Walking Dead won't be able to start when it would normally start, so it won't be ready, say, until the second half or something. Maybe next season will be 16 episodes straight or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because usually they start at the end of May and they go into the end of
August.
November.
Oh.
Well, Fear usually, does. It would start summertime, but then it would end, about
I meant filming of Walking Dead.
We know that they didn't finish shooting Fear. They were still shooting it when the shutdown happened. So, in fact, I think all the actors are still in Austin, or most of them are. So, there's anyway, but maybe they got enough done to do the first half. So I don't know. We'll see. I just hope it's better than last season. So
I don't know, that sneak peek.
They got a plane. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to sad or awe sauce.
All right, so we start off with Glynis from Toronto, and she says, "Those welling up teary eyes of Judith. Kaylee Fleming can really act." And I do agree, that kid can act. And likewise, Carol, also all teary-eyed when Kelly and Carol were talking about Connie. Nice to hear that Carol's stories have been told to the relatively newcomers. Yeah, apparently Kelly got the whole gist about what's going on with Carol and her history. There should be a prospectus given out to each incoming new member of the legendary survivors, especially the brave man. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It reminded me when Kelly was talking about Carol that way. It reminded me of, Picard and how people were talking about Picard in Picard.
Yeah. To Picard.
Yes, to Picard. The great man, they say in the book a lot. Deanna, what do you have anything for sad sauce?
Oh, no, I mentioned it earlier. It was just the fact that I just thought was how Judy didn't mention what Michonne was up to all the way truthfully, and we already discussed it.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, LT? Do you have anything?
Nothing anybody's not already hit on, because Judith made me kind of misty there. Considering that it's just her and Uncle Daryl.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And just Negan and Lydia, I mean, as rough as that was, you could tell that, he may not have done it the best way, but I think his heart was in the right place, and I think he still has a lot of feeling for her, because I mean, it's like he said, we never killed kids, and you can tell that's a big deal for Negan.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Mark, what about you?
Well, the only sad I could say majorly to me was the scene between Negan and Lydia. That was really sad to see.
Mm.
And then the only one after that would be no one died this week. I was so sad about that. I guess my predictions will be at the end of the season, which we have to wait for.
Well, the one whisperer died, but...
Oh, that's a whisperer.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. No one from the cast no main whisperer died. Well, I guess there's only one main whisperer now, Beta.
Yeah, Beta. It's the one. I guess it was sad. It's just like Judas is still coping. I feel like she is still coping with this new world. And like Daryl was like telling her, it's like, she has this big family. It's like, don't worry about it. It's like, you're fine. But it was touching to see. But I also think there's like Judith obviously has been sheltered during this whole deal. Like, I guess it's sad to see that she's having to experience these things that we know she's a kid, and like she doesn't necessarily maybe understand what's going on because I feel like they have been sheltering her. But like, Daryl's trying to teach her the ropes and this and that. And like, she's not really, I guess that's not coming across because she's still sitting there thinking like, hey, these are still human beings. They might have family like I do. We have these connections, but in this world, it's like, hey, no, it's like you kill or be killed. And it's like, that's kind of the end of the story. Your people are your people, and like, that's it. And then everybody else is just like the enemy. And I don't know. I found it very sad that that's what she's growing up in. Mm-hmm. And that she might not really is still at this point that she's even getting to understand.
Yeah, I think with her, I think she understands like the enemy, but it's easier to envision the enemy as like a group. But when you see individual people, it's, harder to see that, I guess. And like,
I don't think she necessarily really realizes though that they're actually human beings, and that she's thinking like, oh, the enemy's just kind of like these walker things, or like walkers, or like the undead. And then when she's faced many times where she killed the guy when Hilltop was burning, and she thought it was a walker, and she stabbed it, and it's like, oh no, it was an actually human being.
Right.
I think she's still dealing with the fact that it's like everybody's an enemy, and like it's not just like, oh, these are just like undead things. They're just like, they're actually human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that's what she's dealing with. She's not understanding that.
Well, largely I would agree with you on that. That she's she acts so mature, but she is just like a 10 or 11-year-old kid. I guess she's 10 in the show. But in actuality, she still has a lot to learn. Then I would agree with you on that. I think what we also see in that scene though is a bit of fear of abandonment. I mean, she's lost her dad, her mom, her mom, went away a little too easy for me, and I brought that up, a couple weeks ago. So she's worried that she's going to lose Daryl now, her Uncle Daryl or whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought that was sad. And it's also, I hate to say, but it's, you can relate to that, and you can understand why she might feel that way. Cause I know if I was, if I was in her shoes, I think I would feel that way too,
Well, see, that's why I think, I just want to say, I know we're trying to move through.
No, it's fine.
That's why I think she didn't tell Daryl the truth because she know he would want to go help Michonne look
Yeah.
for Rick. And
Yeah.
so that would be why she, felt like the abandoned thing. And then, Daryl reassured her that he wasn't going anywhere. You got family all around.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and Kyle, I disagree. I don't think she's not seeing that it's, I think that's just because she was just going through that. That's why she said what she said, because she kind of embodies Carl to me a little bit, like how Carl was back when he was the young, the little boy. So I just think that was just more so the abandonment part of it, that she just didn't want to be left as feels like everybody's leaving her.
Yeah.
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 No, it totally
I
makes
would
sense.
agree. Would agree with that. I think that also, that it's like one of those things. It's like she has lost a lot of people, and she doesn't want to lose Daryl, and so that, like, either they go away or they die, or whatever. So I think what she's feeling is something you can understand. Now, why she didn't say to Daryl what Michonne was actually doing, and whether or not, if Daryl heard that, I don't think that he would abandon her anyway. But she fears that he would just go off and yeah. So I don't think that it was. I think if she had told him, it wouldn't have really made a difference. But about the only thing I could see him trying to do is trying to contact her. So he might, go out of his way to try to get a signal or something with her. But I don't think he would actually leave her, because, and I did like the point that he made when he said, I can't promise you that, because it's funny, with I brought up Picard, and I've got the Picard hat still on, but it was that one thing in one of the episodes where they said a promise is a prison. And it's true. It's like, if you make a promise to somebody, they're going to expect it to be true. And it's better not to make those kind of promises, because you don't know what's going to happen. And Daryl, I think, is right. He's actually, and he treats that with a good level of maturity, both in himself, but also I think Judith, understands him with that maturity too, to understand, look, I have no intentions of leaving you, but I don't know what's going to happen. It could happen, but I'm going to try my best not to leave you. So anyway, I like that scene, and I like that, but it was still, it was sad. The other thing I was going to bring up is that I could see why Eugene kind of saw the point of how Princess feels. I thought that there was definitely some parallels there, because Eugene had done things, especially, with the Saviors, and had, I think, kind of ostracized him for, who knows how long before, he finally got in the good graces of the community. So,
and he actually betrayed everybody too.
He definitely betrayed everyone. So
during the All-Out War.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you saw, what's his face here walking all over me earlier, but now he's right here and he's threatening to walk all over me again. He's right off camera here. Taz. So, Taz, you're becoming a personality on this show. Anyway. Okay. So that's it for our sad sauce. So now it's time for feedback.
We can talk about it. Done talking. Time to listen.
And we got a voicemail from our good friend, Steve from OKC.
Okay, Walking Dead talk through. This is Steve. I'm going to go ahead and send this in case I'm not able to jump on the call Tuesday night. When did Luke become radio guy? Was he taking lessons from Eugene or something? Did I miss something in the previous episodes? Was Eugene training Luke on the radio? Did they have some sort of, I don't know. I laughed every time when little Judith said, I left Gabriel a note. Like, this kid just goes off and does whatever she wants, which is super cool, but at the same time is really dangerous. Yeah, after all that talk, and as much as I thought the princess character was cool, after all that talk, it looked to me like she basically walked in a straight line for those last, 15 feet of the minefield. So that was kind of, anticlimactic, I guess, a little bit. She throws the canteen, the Zed walks into mines, and then she just kind of just strolls straight ahead a few paces. Maybe that was meant to make us laugh. I don't know. I did find it funny the second time that I watched it. The first time I just was kind of scratching my head at it. That cliffhanger ending, man. How are they going to get out of this? And so this, obviously we've got to wait however long before we can see the finale. And then of course we're probably going to have an extended amount of time before the next season starts. So, loved all the stuff with Daryl and Judith there in the woods with him teaching her and that whole scene with the Whisperer and Daryl kind of, trying to get information out of her and then just killing her. And Judith really couldn't understand that. So, anyway, I might be able to jump in Tuesday. I don't know. If not, talk to you later.
And I'll just say, thank you so much, Steve, for that voicemail. And has he given us a voicemail each week this half season? I think so. So anyway, thank you. But as far as it coming in, I'll have to say, unfortunately, he did not make it. So probably find out tomorrow. Oh, I forgot. Anyway. Anyway, we miss you in here, Steve. All right. So, anything you guys want to comment on from Steve's voicemail?
No, well said.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to our listener feedback. So we've got Glynis here who is listening in, but we are providing the voiceover. So, Mark, why don't you start out?
All right. Well, she starts off saying, when Ezekiel introduced himself to Princess, I got the impression he paused ever so slightly and wanted to go back to his theatrical ways and announce that he's King Ezekiel. But it's funny, too, because that's exactly what happened. But he stopped himself because the way she was like, I could have called myself Queen, but, that would make me old and I look good and I'm better off as being Princess.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, wait, I'm old? And then he stopped himself, I think.
Yeah, it was kind of like he was like, I am Ezekiel. Holding up his chest ready to, say, King, I am King Ezekiel. But of course he doesn't.
And I had a battle cat.
Yes.
She continues on saying, damn, another The Walking Dead horse meets its end. It's true.
It is true.
It's true.
So many. Of course, we don't know if both of them met their end or not, but we see that the one did.
Yeah, horses are definitely red shirts of The Walking Dead, it seems.
Although I have to say that dead horse head didn't look all that real to me.
No, it didn't. It was, similar to The Godfather in the bed. Next one would be Princess was very like Eugene in embellishing the truth in order to have some company. In her case and in Eugene's case, as he identified with her, it was for the protection that Abe provided for Eugene. So yeah, that's a good comparison right there. And so has Princess been around the hospital folk who were in The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 8, Coda, when Rick and company went to rescue Beth, as Princess called the walkers rotters? No, that was a completely different hospital, I believe.
Atlanta.
Yeah, that was in
one the
Atlanta at that time. Yeah. Though it's funny because the hospital that they're filming in front of really is in Atlanta on that street.
It looks just like the hospital in that episode.
And The Walking Dead was literally and figuratively walking in a minefield all of this episode to some degree. Not entirely. There was it like that's why I wouldn't give it a 10, I'd say, is because it had its moments, but it wasn't completely there. Plus, it's just sucky that we have to wait for the finale.
And speaking of Fear, again, something else we've seen on Fear, Minefield.
Yep,
so,
very true.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, with the Channel 4, I think it was called, episode. The found footage episode, if you want to call it. Which some people loved, some people hated. I think it was about 50-50. And I believe Kyle was in the hated category.
Oh, he was in the hated. I remember that episode. She says, a pity the cat wasn't black that crossed Beta's and the Horde's path. Beta and company need to go some bad luck coming their way soon. That is true.
I agree.
I like this empathetic Negan. He really helped Lydia mourn her mom, so she'll be less emotionally scarred by not bottling up her feelings. And that's true. And I think that's exactly what he was trying. He's trying to get her to let it out so she doesn't hold it in. And I think he might have been looking at that in his own perspective with his wife, because his wife died of cancer and, you know, losing somebody. Maybe he was just taking it from that viewpoint. Maybe that was his excuse for beating people over the head. One of them. To continue on, Judith is really grappling with the Whisperer kill she did. By the way, she reacted to Daryl's cold-blooded kill of the Whisperer. Now to wait ever so impatiently for The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 16. Very true. We do have to wait.
Yep, it's going to be a while. We don't even know how long. Dieta, what other thoughts do you have about this episode?
Just like the Eugene part when she said it, that's where I went with it. Back when Eugene was lying about he had the cure or knew the cure, and everybody was trying to get him and protect him. So that's where I connected when she said that. I was like, oh yeah, I had that down. Just the part where that's why he said what he said about Princess being, trying to get people to be around and all of that. So that, and what else did she say? Let me see. I'm looking at the list. I think that was it, just the Eugene part.
LT, what about you?
I think part of my thing this time was back to our old foible about distances. Because one minute, they're in the hospital, they're in the woods. They're in the hospital, they're in the woods.
Me too, LT, me too.
Yeah, it's like there are some places that I could take you here around home where, you could have that kind of transition, but the woods aren't that deep. They're thick, but you're not going to be moseying for, plot hours and not run up on a house or something. I know we're going to find out about who Aaron and I keep wanting to call him Argyle.
Alden.
It's
Alden.
Oh, okay.
And that's Argyle is a character in Fallout 3. So
yeah, I know.
But Aaron Alden doing there, we're going to follow we're going to follow along and be sneaky. They're probably, I mean, if they trained the scouts, that's why we had so many scouts hanging from trees. I mean, just to think that they're following the big bunch of Whisperers and the Guardians. I mean, they were not really being that stealthy.
They were Abbott and Costello.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting once they get to the point of when Beta gets them where they're going. And as I said before, find out who the other people are, because they have guns. I really like Princess, but it's still that whole section was.
She's a plucky character.
She is, and we needed some new interesting blood, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm just kind of disappointed with the way things are. We're going to have to wait however long until we get the end of this.
Right.
But I got to admit, they've done good this season, even though there have been a few slow parts, down parts. But for the most part, it's been a good run this time. Definitely picked up from the whole Savior arc.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very different.
All right. We don't have any notes listed. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to bring up for the episode?
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't realize we.
Oh well, no,
didn't get
that's
to.
okay. It's not much because everything has pretty much been covered. But I just wanted to go back to the Judas thing, just the part. Like I know we were saying she was having that little thing, but the question she was asking Daryl, well, you just gonna leave her there, or what if she has a family? And I'm like, she's dead. What does it matter? She's dead. You can't. It's like, okay, Judah, but she's dead. She's dead. We can't do anything with her. I mean, did you expect Daryl to pick up the body and drag it along until they found the family? Yeah. I mean, it just, that part didn't fit with all of what she was, trying to go through. I don't know what the point of her saying all that was. It just didn't fit.
She wanted to bury the body is what it was.
Oh.
So, and what did Glenn had said it years ago, saying, we bury the dead. We don't burn them. And in this case, Daryl was pretty much doing the same thing like in season 1, what Glenn had stated, saying, we bury our own, we burn the rest. So in this case, Daryl's still keeping to that respect of like, we'll just kill it, leave it here. So
yeah.
yeah, I know.
Leave it. And then the last thing I had was the bike. Oh my God, how cool was that? Bicycles in no pocket. Come on.
Yeah. That when I saw that, it reminded me of like when Carl and what's her name, Enid were on the roller skates.
Right.
Oh yeah, we did have roller skates.
And we've seen a bike again. We've seen a bike on Fear, but we've not seen them use them here. Like, although I think in Fear it was more like a tricycle or the thing that what's his name? The guy that had the agua, that guy, Ephraim or something like that. Anyway, he had like a bike or something like a bike.
It's like one of those shop tricycles you see in big factories.
Right.
Yeah, the garbage guys did have bicycles.
Yeah, the trash hippies had bikes.
Yeah. When they cycled into Alexandria.
Oh, that's right. Yes, the vultures.
Yeah, they did.
The vultures did too.
Okay.
Yeah. That one guy used them.
Well, okay. I forgot about it. It's been so long. It was just funny just seeing them riding the bikes. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Just glad they don't have the what you call them, the fast zombies, the running zombies that run up.
Oh yeah.
They might can get away. They might can get away on the bike with the slow zombies.
And that Dawn of the Dead zombies, they don't run.
Glennis, was there anything else you wanted to add or any thoughts otherwise?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It was just on that that clip from Fear the Walking Dead. It's a bit worrying that Morgan's eyes were really red. I don't know if they were bloodshot or if he's actually turned. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
I've only gotten to see that one time, so I haven't.
Kyle and I actually talked about it. What was it, today or yesterday?
Yeah. All right. Mark, do you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
Nothing.
What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everybody.
No. Then I only have one thing left to say, and the episode was called The Tower. Where was the tower? We never got to see a tower.
That was the.
I know it was the hospital, but even in the shots of the hospital, I did not see a tower.
I know.
And apparently it was the same hospital that they used for Grady Memorial.
Yep.
I don't know if they actually shot that back then at Grady Memorial or not, like the actual Grady Memorial.
No.
But, they shot it at a hospital, and this was the same hospital, but I did not see a tower. That's my point. No. Where's the tower?
Maybe it's called Tower Records.
But it's funny how they named it the Tower, and every comic book person out there equated, oh, this is when somebody important dies. And no, it's not. And they always seem to be an episode off when it comes to that. So I'm assuming we're going to see something, but I'm with you on that tower thing. It's just like, we didn't really see it, and I didn't see a tower on that hospital. They mention it though in The Talking Dead, though.
Right. Well.
So let's move on to what's probably going to be a short news segment.
There's a couple weird stories on the news.
All right, looking at ratings this week, The Walking Dead got a 1.13 in the 18 to 49 with 3.488 million viewers. That is up a little bit from last week. It got a 1.06 and 3.264 million last week. Talking Dead was also up slightly, very slightly in its case from last week. It got a 0.39 in the 18 to 49 demographic with 1.389 million viewers. That is up from 0.37 and 1.386 million viewers. So what's that, like 3,000 more viewers? Not much.
No.
So, but it is a little bit of an uptick from, last week. And in general, the ratings the last few weeks have been higher. I think coronavirus is still putting it in the zeitgeist. Speaking of which, as far as zeitgeist is concerned, the Parrot Analytics, which records like social media impact, whatever, I'd have to look to see exactly what it means, but they call them average demand expressions. It's kind of like the hip and the new thing to measure things that don't normally get measured. And The Walking Dead, again, for the second time this week, is number one with 92.9 million demand expressions. So that makes it pretty high. And one thing I'll mention, since we've talked about it, Tiger King showed up for the first time with 40.7 million or almost 40.8 million in the digitals, which Kyle, I think you could, and we were saying before about the Carol Baskin, her place is just, a few miles away from me. So, yeah. And as far as any news or whatever, I guess the only thing I could say, and I don't really have it written down, so this is going to be probably wrong, but I know Angela Kang was she like called in to Talking Dead. She wasn't like a guest, but she called in and she was just basically explaining like why the finale couldn't be done. And I think it was basically music, I think was most of it. Did any of you guys hear that to get more of an impression on it?
Yeah, basically, she said the way they usually try to do it a couple of weeks before, the way she made it sound was like they were 75% done with the post-production, but there were still things like with the audio and everything that they would need the actors to come in to fly in, and the cost of actually bringing that to everybody's home would be crazy because they would have like too many people in one house, and they would have to go from home to home. Now, obviously, if, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who's now home in Rhinebeck, New York, but they're filming in, Georgia, so they would have to get that audio equipment up to his house or something. Or, let's say, like with Fear, Jenna Elfman's backing out in California, so those shows, they can't really do that post-production with audio-wise properly. So I guess there's like a few effects, things that has to be done in the studio, but they're trying to do them remotely, but it's kind of hard. So I think they were going to probably be at like 95% in another 2 or 3 weeks, but they're pushing to see if they can. But I guess the California laws that's going on with the lockdown, they're not allowed to do any of that stuff.
Yeah. And it sucks, but it's also understandable. We've never had anything like this. I've said it every episode, every podcast I've done in the last, month or so. It's just like nothing we've ever experienced before. And
we go with the flow. Get creative.
Yeah. And I think, maybe a new show that is being made may have some leeway in it because, I don't know, like they've never existed. So, if they suddenly change their music, big deal because they've never had any music to compare it to. But like, I would think like, for example, the Foley work, like if they had to do any Foley work, that I think would be really hard to do at home. Like you could probably do,
Oh, you could do a lot of it at home. Trust me. There's a way about doing it. It's just being creative.
Yeah.
And I worked on a Foley stage before, and it's a small room.
Like,
and you just have to be creative with certain sounds.
Like if they're not allowed to go into a recording studio for that kind of stuff, it sucks. Like the music part, I totally get because they have an orchestra.
It's the ADR they're talking about mostly, them talking and overdubbing. Because when they're out there with field mics, sometimes they can't even get a good recording of the voice.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, Mark, since you have some background with that, like, how different is that from a regular, just recording of the voice?
Think about how, all right, to give a brief example, how we're working with professional mics and Dieta, you're on your phone. So if you could hear like ambient noise, things of that nature. Whereas with us, it's more direct and we can control it a little bit more. It's a direct audio. Whereas with her, she's capturing a lot of noise or anything in or around the room.
Right.
And sometimes I've had it where I was on a set that my friend had, and it was in a gymnasium. There was noise all over the place. We literally had to redo one of the main actors who we were following around in the gym. And I said, look, we can't do it in here. The audio we'll just do as a slate, and then we'll just overdub it later on when it is with his dialogue. He goes, can we? I said, we can. And then we had to do a voiceover inside the gymnasium. So we literally had packing blankets, and I had to get tables, chairs, and everything to make a vocal booth in itself, just to record that day with the DAT machine. So it's just, you have to be creative. But when it comes to like effects for like footsteps, noise, crunching of bones, things like that, those are elements that you could get out of your own fridge. It's the direct voice thing that she was talking about. Music is another thing. You could have Ben McCreary could just sit in his home studio and record everything and then just send it over their way. But he has to get the video to reference it and then sync it to that track. So, and then their concern is if it gets out over transmission through the internet, But other than that, then it's all visual effects. It's like I guess it's the last part of the visual effects that they couldn't really do.
Okay, so anyway, let's move on and tell people how to contact us.
We would like to encourage you to follow us on Twitter, and you can find us at Walking Dead GSM. To submit your theories and feedback, most people post on our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, and you can find us at facebook.com/groups/WalkingDeadGSM. You can email us at walkingdead@talkthroughmedia.com, and also we have a feedback forum at talkthroughmedia.com/feedback. Or if you'd like to give us like some if you would like to give us voicemail, you can call us at 216-232-6146. The deadline for the new episode. Wait.
I think though,
Who knows?
It's worth saying that given the current climate and things that we have to do, so we're not going to completely go away. We'll probably do some Patreon stuff, and I think we may maybe do a few Patreon calls, and we'll give the audio out to everybody. So we'll release them regularly to all listeners, not just Patreon people. I don't know. We'll do a bunch of things, and definitely I do plan to set up probably in the next week to do another happy hour thing on either Friday or Saturday night. So we'll definitely do that. We'll just check the Facebook group for more information about that.
And then just once we actually get the next episode or the finale, all of our new episodes do go on YouTube. So you can just search for Talk Through Media, and remember to subscribe and click the bell to get the notification of when we have new videos. The videos do go first before the podcast does. And so if you want to get the latest right when it happens, you can usually get there first, and then usually the podcast happens not too long after that.
Our Facebook page for the Talk Through Media Network is at facebook.com/Talk Through Media. You can give us a review there. So we'd, especially if you're not on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, that's a good way to recommend us to people. Another way is through podchaser.com. And those are another website, and it's integrating with different apps now, where you can leave a rating review, not just for the podcast, but for individual episodes. So that's kind of cool. So podchaser.com, set up an account and give us a rating review there. And of course, Apple Podcasts, that's still the de facto for a lot of people. If you subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts, you could really help us out by giving us a rating review. And we actually got one, came this week, 5-star. It says, amazing podcast. I love the deep dives you guys do. You guys really take the time to touch on everything that's happened in the show. Plus, you do it in a way that's funny and entertaining. Plus, I got to support Brian, a fellow Canadian. Thanks, boys. And that's from Eric Habs from Canada. So his Canadian Apple Podcast review.
Nice. Thank you, Aaron.
Cool. And of course, there's the Patreon, which we mentioned earlier, but that's at patreon.com/Walking Dead Talk Through. And we are overdue for some Patreon content now that the season is kind of stalled, waiting for the last episode. I would envision us probably doing something with that pretty soon. And like I said, during this time, I think people will need to hear from people like us that will occasionally make you laugh.
Yeah.
And make you think. And I think we all need to stick together. So let's not go, dark during this off period, I would say. So
I'll throw out some ideas soon.
Sure.
With that, probably a cast watch party of maybe a best of episode.
We would like to thank our Patreon supporters, Steve Brown, Alex Baelish, and Lawrence Todd. So, LT, thank you very much. You're the only one that made it tonight. So, and of course, share our posts on Facebook and Twitter when they come out. And also my Picard podcast with Ruthie. We just finished the season week before last. We are going to, like this podcast, we are going to continue doing some episodes. We are working out some specifics right now on discussing the book that came with the series called The Last Best Hope. And we are probably going to be doing an interview for that and a bit of a roundtable type thing for that, as well as a roundtable for season 1 of that show. So that's at StarTrekPicard.com. You can also find when Star Trek Discovery comes back. You can go to StarTrekDiscoveryPodcast.com for that. And that has episodes for both Picard and Discovery on it. So that's probably the one you want to pick up if you watch Discovery as well. And the Facebook for that is Facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. And our Patreon is patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. So that's it for me. What about you, Mark? What's going on with Panels to Pixels?
Well, Panels to Pixels, you can find on Next Level Podcast Radio Network. Steve and I started our Witcher venture, which reviewing the Witcher on Netflix, and we're having fun with that. To me, this was something that Steve really wanted to do because he actually started it a few months back, but never really went back into it. So I'm going in blind. I did not know anything of it. I, as a kid, was all about fantasy. I still am to some degree, but it kind of reminded me a bit of like Game of Thrones, some of the old books
That's what
I used
I
to
hear.
read, kind of like Elric and Melonbone from the Michael Moorcock series. So it reminded me of that, and a lot of my friends were on me. So I watched it. But with Game of Thrones, I find myself, I have to watch like this like 3 or 4 times each episode just to keep up because there's so many people and everything's different. But it's pretty cool. And I suggest if any of you people out there would want to follow us on that journey, just follow us there and leave some feedback if you can. And we'll read it on the podcast. But we're having fun with that. We're going to continue on with that. We're doing it 2 episodes at a time. And then after that, we'll move on to something else.
Nice. I actually would probably like to announce, though, that we are actually going to start a new podcast, and I'm going to kind of take over. It's kind of just basically a general pop culture discussion. We're going to come up with like different concepts or whatever, and like maybe do an episode here or there every few weeks, or maybe like once a month. I don't know. We're kind of still working it out. And our first episode that we're going to do is going to be about the Galaxy Quest documentary. It's called Never Surrender, a Galaxy Quest documentary, and we'll probably do that here in the next week. So we'll post some stuff on both of the groups of Walking Dead, maybe like Star Trek, whatever, just to let you all know. And we would love to hear your comments and all that stuff. Just kind of start something new that we want to add to the network. And so we hope you all enjoy.
Yeah, and there's also another podcast that's starting up with the network. It's called Rebinge DS9. So it's another Star Trek podcast, not hosted by Ruthie and me. So that's going to be coming out probably in the next week. So, all right, the next episode, whenever it comes, is season 10, episode 16, titled A Certain Doom. And there is kind of certain doom us waiting for it. We know that the story is by Jim Barnes and Eli Journay and Corey Reed, and the teleplay is by Corey Reed, and it's directed by Greg Nicotero. And beyond that, I don't have a description for it. There's probably one somewhere. Let me go look. Nope. Google doesn't have it. So, okay. So we don't have a description, but eventually we will. But we can assume it's the final Whisper War thingy. So, until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kyle.
And I'm Mark.
And this is the Walking Dead Talk Through. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.